Sign these papers, Paige, so your husband can finally be with a woman of his caliber." My mother-in-law, Mimi, laughed, a sound as brittle and false as her acrylic nails. My husband, Ryan, stood beside her, his expression a mask of arrogance. They thought I was broken. They forgot who owned the sprawling Calabasas mansion they were currently standing in. I tossed the property deed onto the marble coffee table, watching the color drain from their faces. "By all means, get married. But you have 30 minutes to get off my property before this story really begins." Let me know in the comments where you're all watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep growing this channel and bringing you more amazing content. The sizzle of a spatula hitting a hot cast-iron skillet was the opening soundtrack to the morning in a magnificent 2-story home in the sun-drenched hills of Southern California. The aroma of sizzling chorizo and garlic, which should have been enticing, was instead the catalyst for the daily argument in the marble-clad dining room. Paige wiped a bead of sweat from her temple with the back of her hand. Since the crack of dawn, she'd been in the messy kitchen, a commercial-grade space at the back of the house, separate from the pristine showroom kitchen. She was personally overseeing an order for 500 gourmet lunchboxes for a corporate client. Paige's Pantry, her catering business, was thriving, but success hadn't made her complacent. She was always hands-on. Carrying a tray, Paige walked into the main dining room. There, Mimi was already seated, draped in a silk loungewear set that probably cost more than 2 months' salary for one of Paige's employees. The older woman's face was pinched, as sour as spoiled milk. "What is this smell, Paige?" Mimi eyed the plate before her with disgust, as if she'd found a bug in it. On the plate was a perfectly cooked chorizo and potato hash, topped with a flawless sunny-side-up egg. Paige set down a pot of freshly brewed coffee. "It's breakfast hash, Mimi. Ryan's favorite. I had some ingredients left over from the catering order, and it seemed a shame to waste them." "Waste?" Mimi cut in, her voice shrill. "So you're feeding your husband and his mother leftovers?" "My God, Paige. This house is a palace. The columns are imported marble, but your mentality is still stuck in some greasy spoon diner." Paige took a deep breath, trying to quell the rising frustration in her chest. "They're not leftovers from someone's plate, Mimi. They're fresh, unused ingredients. The chorizo was delivered this morning." "Excuses," Mimi scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. The gold bracelets on her wrist clattered dramatically. "You are a director's wife, Paige. Even if Ryan's company isn't his own, his title is impressive. You should try to match that. The house stinks of garlic and onions first thing in the morning. When will it ever smell like a Parisian perfumery, like Linda's house?" Just then, footsteps descended the grand staircase. Ryan Harris, Paige's husband, appeared in a crisp designer shirt, ironed to perfection by Paige the night before. He was handsome, the kind of man who turned heads, but his eyes that morning held a familiar look of weariness and entitlement. "What is it now, Mom?" "It's too early for all this noise," Ryan asked, pulling out a chair. He didn't look at Paige, his eyes immediately glued to his phone. "It's your wife! Feeding us catering scraps again. It's embarrassing, Ryan. What if we had guests over for an early meeting?" "The whole place smells like a taco truck," Mimi complained in a deliberately childish tone. Paige looked at her husband, hoping for a sliver of support. "Ryan, I just made some hash. You said last week you were craving it." Ryan put his phone down with a sharp click. He glanced at the plate, then at Paige. His look wasn't one of love, but of someone whose comfort had been disturbed. "Paige, can you just, for once, listen to my mother?" Ryan's voice was low but sharp. "If she doesn't like the smell of spices, then don't cook with them. Go buy some croissants or imported granola. I give you money for groceries, don't I?" Paige was stunned. The $5,000 a month Ryan gave her didn't even cover the electricity bill for a house this size, let alone Mimi's weekly spa treatments and shopping sprees. For years, the profits from Paige's Pantry had propped up their entire lifestyle. Water, power, internet, the housekeeper's salary, even the gas for the Escalade. Ryan drove Paige covered it all. "Ryan, that $5,000 was gone last week after I paid for your mother's charity luncheon buy-in," Paige replied softly, trying to remain logical. "What?" Mimi's eyes bulged. "Are you keeping tabs on your mother-in-law? This house is so grand because my son works his fingers to the bone. You're just along for the ride, living in luxury with a handsome husband. And you have the nerve to bring up one little charity event?" It was the same line, the one Mimi and Ryan always repeated. You're just along for the ride." Paige wanted to scream. She wanted to march to the safe, pull out the deed to the house, and tape it to their foreheads, but she restrained herself. She had promised her late father she would be a devoted wife, at least until her patience finally ran out. "Fine. If you don't want to eat, I'll clear it away," Paige said coldly, reaching for Ryan's plate. "Hey, don't!" Ryan stopped her, grabbing her wrist but not gently. "I'll eat it. I'm late. But next time just listen to my mom. Don't be so embarrassing." Ryan shoveled the hash into his mouth without a word of praise, though inwardly he admitted it was, as always, delicious. But his ego, and the need to impress his mother, kept him silent. Mimi huffed and reluctantly began to eat, though she never stopped grumbling about the smell of onions clinging to the expensive drapes. Paige retreated to her kitchen, her back to her husband and mother-in-law. She muttered to herself, "Enjoy it while you can, because my patience isn't a catering supply I can restock every day." That afternoon, an upscale cafe in West Hollywood was filled with the scent of expensive perfume and the sound of carefully suppressed laughter, the kind of laughter from socialites afraid of cracking their foundation. Mimi sat with two of her friends, Linda and Sharon. She felt insecure. The designer handbag she carried was a convincing knockoff Paige had bought for her online, while her friends flaunted the real thing. But for the sake of her image, Mimi always pretended her son Ryan was a wildly successful tycoon who spoiled her rotten. "Mimi, darling, is that a new bag?" "The texture of the leather looks a little different from mine," Linda asked, squinting at the bag in Mimi's lap. Mimi's heart hammered against her ribs. "Oh, this? It's a limited edition, dear. Ryan picked it up for me on his last business trip to Europe. The texture is meant to be unique," she lied smoothly. A cold sweat began to form on her back. Suddenly, the cafe door opened. A woman entered who instantly commanded the attention of the entire room. She was tall and statuesque, wearing a simple but elegant ivory dress that clung to her perfectly. Large designer sunglasses were perched on her head, and most importantly, she carried an authentic Hermes Birkin bag made of crocodile skin, a bag worth a small fortune. "That's Roxanne Shaw," Sharon whispered excitedly. "The Black Widow. Her husband died last year and left her a massive mining fortune. She just got back from living abroad." Mimi's eyes lit up. The words mining fortune were like a symphony to her ears. She watched Roxanne sit alone at a corner table, ordering a glass of Chardonnay in the middle of the day with an air of sophisticated boredom. Unwilling to miss an opportunity for social climbing, Mimi stood up. "Excuse me for a moment, ladies. I think I recognize her from one of Ryan's business galas." With forced confidence, Mimi approached Roxanne's table. Roxanne, who was actually stressing about a maxed-out credit card bill due the next day, looked up with a practiced, appraising gaze. Her eyes scanned Mimi from head to toe. "Fake bag," Roxanne thought. But then her eyes caught the key fob Mimi had placed on the table, the key to a Cadillac Escalade, which was actually one of the catering company's vehicles. "Maybe she's tacky new money. Could be useful," Roxanne mused. "Excuse me, you're Roxanne Shaw, aren't you?" Mimi said with feigned familiarity. Roxanne offered a dazzling smile, one she had practiced in the mirror to lure in her prey. "I am? And you are?" "Mimi Harris, Ryan Harris's mother. You might know my son. He's a director of investments in Century City." Mimi puffed up Ryan's mid-level position. "Oh, Ryan," Roxanne feigned surprise. "The handsome one, right? Tall, strong eyebrows? Oh my gosh, you're his mother. No wonder he's so dashing, with such a beautiful mother like you." The flattery sent Mimi soaring. They fell into conversation. Roxanne was a master manipulator. She spun a fabricated tale of a lonely life surrounded by wealth, of a vast business empire that needed a strong man to help manage it, and of how she longed for a mother-in-law figure she could go shopping with. "Oh, you have no idea the headaches I have, Roxanne," Mimi began to complain, seeing an opening. "Ryan is a good, successful boy, but his wife, well, what's wrong with his wife, Mimi?" Roxanne prompted, a sly glint in her eye. "She's from the working class. A cook. The house smells of garlic every day. Ryan made a terrible mistake. If only he had a sophisticated woman like you, Roxanne, his life would be perfect." Roxanne laughed delicately, covering her mouth with a manicured hand. "Oh, Mimi, you're too much. But you know, sometimes a man needs a partner who can match his lifestyle. It must be so hard for Ryan, having to feel embarrassed to bring his wife to company parties." That sentence lodged itself firmly in Mimi's brain. Before they parted, Roxanne slipped her business card into Mimi's hand and, as if on a whim, took off the silk Hermes scarf she was wearing. "This is for you. The color is perfect with your skin tone." Mimi went home with a fluttering heart and a new mission: to get rid of the garlic-scented Paige and replace her with the walking gold mine named Roxanne. That night, the atmosphere at the dinner table was more tense than usual. Paige had just finished overseeing a large catering delivery for a wedding. She was still in her work uniform, a black polo shirt with Paige's Pantry embroidered on it, and a pair of jeans. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, her face free of makeup. Across the table, Ryan was eating with gusto. The menu was a slow-cooked short rib stew, another one of Paige's incredibly delicious meals. But Mimi wasn't touching her food. She was too busy admiring herself in the dining room mirror, draped in the scarf from Roxanne. "Ryan, look at Mom's new scarf. Isn't it beautiful?" Mimi asked, breaking the silence. "Nice, Mom. Must have been expensive," Ryan commented without looking up. "It was a gift from your future, ideal wife," Mimi said loudly, intentionally for Paige to hear. Paige's fork clinked softly against her plate. She didn't comment. She just kept eating, pretending to be deaf. Ryan frowned. "What are you talking about, Mom?" Mimi moved to the chair beside Ryan, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper that was still perfectly audible. "I met Roxanne Shaw today. You know, the wealthy widow whose husband left her a mining fortune. She is stunning, Ryan. Flawless skin, elegant, smells divine. Not like—" Mimi flicked her eyes toward Paige. "Not like someone who just came from a fish market." Paige stopped eating. "Mimi, if you have something to say about me, just say it. Don't beat around the bush." "See, Ryan? Your wife is so sensitive." "I was just telling a story," Mimi lied, quickly changing her tune. She turned back to Ryan, stroking his arm. "Roxanne was asking about you, dear. She said she needs a man to help her run her businesses. Just imagine, Ryan, if you were with her, you wouldn't have to slave away as someone's employee. You'd be the boss. You'd be a king." Ryan fell silent. The image of being the head of a mining empire, of having endless money and a wife as glamorous as Roxanne, began to dance in his head. He'd always felt his salary was never enough to satisfy his mother's expensive tastes. He also secretly resented that the house they lived in was Paige's inheritance, even though she never once lorded it over him. Ryan's fragile male ego was easily tempted by the promise of instant wealth. "She asked about me?" Ryan asked, his voice hesitant. "Yes, she said you were dashing, and she's so lonely, Ryan. She needs someone to lean on." Mimi fanned the flames. "Now, compare that to Paige. What do you get from her? The smell of cooking all day. Your wife is so busy making pocket change she forgets to take care of her husband. Look at her. She looks like a mess." "I'm working to pay the electricity bill for this house, Mimi," Paige interjected sharply, her patience wearing thin, "and to pay for the gas in the car you drove this afternoon." "Hey!" Ryan suddenly snapped, making Paige flinch. He slammed his fork down. "Don't you dare bring up money again." "Why are you always like this, Paige? I'm sick of hearing it." A wife's job is to make her husband happy, not to count every penny. Paige looked into her husband's eyes. Something had changed. Those eyes, once filled with love, were now filled with a greed his mother had just awakened. "I'm not counting pennies, Ryan. I just want your mother to appreciate my efforts." "Appreciate what? All you do is cook," Mimi scoffed. "If you were like Roxanne, poised, elegant, with money flowing in, that would be a wife a husband could be proud of." That night, Ryan didn't sleep in their bedroom. He slept in the guest room, claiming he needed to clear his head. But Paige knew. She knew he was in there, scrolling through Roxanne Shaw's Instagram, mesmerized by photos of her luxurious vacations and starting to imagine a life that wasn't his. The next day, the chill in the house was palpable. Paige busied herself at the small office she ran for her catering business, located in a commercial space near a wholesale market, avoiding any interaction with the two people in her home. But avoidance didn't mean ignorance. In her modest office, Paige sat before a pile of invoices. Beside her, her trusted assistant, Brenda, looked at her with concern. "Paige, you look so pale." "Did you even eat breakfast?" Brenda asked. Paige managed a thin smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine, Brenda. Just a lot on my mind." "Is it Mr. Harris again?" Brenda asked carefully. All the employees knew about the attitude of Paige's husband and mother-in-law, as Mimi often showed up at the office demanding cash from the register. Paige sighed, leaning back in her chair. "They're getting worse, Brenda. Now his mother is trying to set him up with some rich widow, says it'll elevate the family's status. Oh my God. And what does Mr. Harris think? He's tempted. I can see it in his eyes. He's blinded by wealth he doesn't even have yet." Paige fiddled with a pen, her gaze distant. "But they've forgotten one very important thing, Brenda. They've forgotten that the comfort they're enjoying right now is very, very fragile." Paige opened her desk drawer and took out a thick blue folder. She opened it slightly. Inside was the official deed to the sprawling mansion in Calabasas. The owner's name was printed in bold, clear letters, Paige Latimer. Paige's father had been a successful real estate investor who had left her several properties but had taught her to live simply and work hard. When she married Ryan, she didn't get a prenup because she believed in love. But this house was an inheritance, her separate property. No law could divide it as a marital asset. "Aren't you going to tell them now?" asked Brenda, who knew the secret. Paige shook her head. "Not yet. I want to see how far Ryan will go. I want to see if he'll really trade his loyalty for an illusion of wealth. If he truly betrays me, that's when I'll show them who the real queen of that castle is." That afternoon, Paige's phone buzzed. A notification from her banking app. A charge of $5,000 had just been made on the supplementary credit card Ryan held. The charge was from a high-end men's boutique on Rodeo Drive. Paige's heart sank. That was the card's limit for the month. Ryan had spent it all in one go, and she knew he didn't need new clothes unless he needed them to impress someone. Paige closed her eyes, fighting back tears. "Go ahead, Ryan," she whispered to herself. "Go ahead and buy the ticket to your own destruction." Saturday night, a time when most couples would relax or watch a movie together. But tonight, Ryan was dressed to the nines. He wore the new designer shirt he'd bought that afternoon. His hair was perfectly styled, and the scent of his expensive cologne filled the living room. Mimi fussed around him like a fly buzzing around sugar, adjusting his collar with a triumphant smile. "So handsome, my boy. Now this is how you should look. Perfect for a date with Roxanne," Mimi praised proudly. Paige came down the stairs. She'd just showered and was wearing a comfortable house dress. She took in the scene with a shattered heart, but her face remained a calm mask. "Where are you going, Ryan? You're all dressed up." Ryan looked nervous for a second, but Mimi quickly jumped in. "Ryan has a meeting with a very important client, an international investor. This is a huge opportunity for his career. Stop asking so many questions and distracting him." "A meeting? On a Saturday night?" Paige raised an eyebrow. Ryan cleared his throat, avoiding her gaze. "Yes, Paige. It's a last-minute thing with an investor. I'll probably be home late." "Oh, an investor?" Paige nodded slowly. "A mining investor, perhaps?" Ryan flinched. He shot a sharp look at Paige. "What are you talking about? Look, I have to go. You should be wishing me luck, not being suspicious all the time." He grabbed his car keys and hurried out the door, forgetting to kiss her goodbye as he usually did. Mimi saw him to the door, waving enthusiastically as if sending her son off to conquer a foreign land. As soon as Ryan's car disappeared down the driveway, she turned to Paige with a mocking smile. "See? Your husband is working hard for his future. And all you can do is be jealous. You're such an ungrateful wife." Paige didn't answer. She simply walked back to her room and locked the door. Elsewhere, in a fine dining restaurant on the 50th floor of a downtown skyscraper, Ryan sat across from Roxanne. The glittering skyline of Los Angeles served as a romantic backdrop. Roxanne was breathtaking in a vibrant red dress that showed off her flawless shoulders. "I'm so glad you could make it, Ryan," Roxanne said in a sultry voice, her hand brushing his on the table. "Honestly, it's so lonely in this city. You meet so many people, but it's hard to find someone genuine." Ryan felt his chest swell with pride. He felt like the luckiest man in the world. Here was a stunning, wealthy woman who needed him. "You don't have to worry, Roxanne. I'm here for you." "I can help you with anything, your business, whatever you need," he answered, his confidence soaring. Roxanne smiled. Inwardly, she was cheering. Hook, line, and sinker. She needed someone to co-sign on her mounting debts, and Ryan, whom she believed owned the lavish Calabasas mansion, was the perfect candidate. Ryan. Roxanne leaned forward, her eyes locking with his. I don't just need a friend. I need a partner. I need a husband who can help me lead my empire. But I know you're already married. Ryan hesitated. An image of Paige, cooking in their hot kitchen, flashed in his mind, only to be replaced by the sparkle of Roxanne's diamond earrings. The devil on his shoulder, which sounded a lot like his mother, whispered loudly in his ear. Leave Paige. Take Roxanne. He took Roxanne's hand, squeezing it tightly. That can be taken care of, Roxanne. What's important is how we feel. I'm not happy with my wife. She doesn't understand me. We're not in the same class. The words of betrayal rolled off his tongue effortlessly. There, in that luxurious restaurant, under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, Ryan Harris officially sold his soul and trampled on his 5-year marriage for a beautiful mirage. And back at home, Mimi smiled contentedly as she watched TV, blissfully unaware that she had just dug her own grave. A week after that secret dinner, the atmosphere in Paige's house became unbearable. There was a tension in the air as thick as the LA smog. Ryan, who usually came home late and exhausted, now came home earlier, his face glowing with a strange mix of excitement and anxiety. Mimi, on the other hand, was like a cat that had just stolen a canary smug, satisfied and sly. That night, a rare rainstorm swept over Southern California. Thunder rumbled occasionally, as if nature itself was issuing a warning. Paige was sitting on the living room sofa, folding laundry. She deliberately did these small chores herself. It was a form of therapy for her patients. Paige, sit down. Ryan and I have something important to discuss with you. Mimi's voice cut through the quiet. She sat on her favorite velvet armchair, her legs crossed arrogantly. Ryan sat next to his mother, wringing his hands. He couldn't bring himself to look Paige in the eye. Paige set down the shirt she was folding. She looked at the two of them calmly. Her heart was pounding. She knew this moment was coming. What is it? Ryan cleared his throat, which was suddenly dry. Look, Paige, you know our financial situation. My salary, we can't keep going on like this. Our expenses are growing. Mom needs better health care, more treatments. Paige frowned. Ryan, your entire salary is yours and your mother's to spend. I cover every single household expense for my business. What more do you need? That's the point, Mimi cut in. You're the wife, Paige. The husband is supposed to be the provider, not the wife who acts like she's a business tycoon, making her husband feel inadequate. Ryan needs a career boost. He needs capital. He needs connections. And you can't give him any of that. Paige remained silent, waiting to see where this insane conversation was headed. Ryan finally looked up, his gaze a carefully constructed mask of pity. Paige, I've met someone. She's a successful businesswoman, a mining heiress. She wants to help me. She's willing to invest in me so I can start my own firm, so I'm not just someone's employee anymore. That's wonderful. It's great you found an investor, Paige said flatly, baiting him. The thing is, she needs a partner, Paige, Mimi added impatiently. She's a widow. She needs a husband to protect her and her assets, and she's chosen Ryan. Silence. Only the sound of rain lashing against the large windows could be heard. What are you saying? I'm saying you need to divorce your husband so he can marry her, Paige, Mimi declared, her voice loud and shameless. Her eyes gleamed with greed. She's a billionaire. If Ryan marries her, all our lives will be upgraded. You won't have to slave away in that smelly kitchen anymore. We can all live off Roxanne's fortune. Ryan took Paige's hand, trying to be persuasive. His hand was cold and clammy. Paige, this is for us, for our future. Roxanne is a wonderful person, and I promise I'll be fair to you. We can have a quiet divorce. I'll make sure you get a generous settlement. Paige pulled her hand away slowly, as if she had just touched something slimy. She stared at her husband's face. The face she once loved now looked utterly repulsive. This man was willing to sell himself for a fortune that wasn't even guaranteed, and he was asking his wife to sign off on the prostitution of their marriage. So, you want a divorce because she's rich? Paige asked, her voice quiet but piercing. It's not just because she's rich, Paige. It's a business strategy. Ryan defended himself, his voice rising as he felt cornered. You should be supporting your husband, not being so selfish. Do you want to see me stuck as a mid-level manager my whole life, while my friends are all driving Bentleys? Yes, Paige. Don't be a selfish wife who blocks her husband's path to success, Mimi added, pointing a finger at Paige's face. Roxanne is a woman of class. She's willing to have Ryan. You should be grateful. Paige closed her eyes. It hurt, of course, but beneath the pain, her mind was working with cold, swift logic. This is it, she thought. This is the line. Paige opened her eyes. There were no tears. Her tears had long dried up over her husband's foolishness. She stood up, walked to a desk in the corner of the room, and took out a set of papers and a pen. Ryan and Mimi exchanged a triumphant glance. They thought she was going to write a letter of agreement. Paige returned to her seat and placed the document's divorce papers she'd had her lawyer draw up weeks ago on the marble table. "I agree," she said. Mimi nearly jumped out of her seat. "Hallelujah! See? That's a good girl. That's a wife who knows her place." Ryan smiled broadly, a weight lifting from his shoulders. "Thank you, Paige. You really are an understanding wife. I promise, once my business with Roxanne takes off, I'll buy you a new car. You won't have to drive that beat-up catering van anymore." "Wait," Paige cut in, her gaze sharp. "I agree to the divorce, but there's a condition." "What condition?" "As long as it's not something ridiculous," Mimi said suspiciously. "I won't be a party to your generous settlement fantasy," Paige said firmly. "We're not negotiating assets, because there are no marital assets to negotiate." Ryan's face fell. "What do you mean? You just said you'd agree." "I agree to the divorce. Sign these papers tonight, and tomorrow we file them with the court." Paige pushed the pen toward Ryan. Ryan froze. A divorce. He was still comfortable with the services Paige provided. Paige who ran the house, Paige who prepared his clothes, Paige who never demanded anything. Roxanne might be rich, but he doubted she would ever iron his shirts. But Mimi nudged him hard in the ribs. "What are you thinking about? This is perfect. Just divorce her. Why would you hang on to a wife with no ambition? If you're divorced, you'll be single. Roxanne will be even happier. You'll be all hers." Ryan swallowed hard. His mother's words and the vision of Roxanne's wealth intoxicated his senses again. "She's right," he thought. "If I marry Roxanne, I'll be a mogul. I can hire 10 housekeepers to do what Paige does." "Fine," Ryan said, his tone defiant, his ego pricked. "If that's what you want, don't come crying back to me when I'm successful." "I won't." "Please, sign." With a hand trembling from a mix of adrenaline and arrogance, Ryan took the pen. He scribbled his signature on the divorce papers, his writing fast and angry. In that moment, he felt powerful. He felt like he was shedding a burden to fly to greater heights. Mimi beamed, her veneered teeth gleaming. Finally, freedom from the smell of garlic. "Ryan, call Roxanne right now. Tell her the good news. Tell her you're free and ready to be her partner." Ryan signed the last page with a dramatic flourish. He tossed the papers in front of Paige. "There. Are you happy now? As of this moment, we are done. I'll have my lawyer file these tomorrow." Paige picked up the papers, scanned them, and then folded them neatly. Her face was an unreadable mask. "Good. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for making your choice." "You're welcome," Ryan said arrogantly. "Now, since we're no longer husband and wife, I'll be sleeping in the master bedroom alone tonight. You can sleep in the guest room until you find a new apartment to rent." Mimi cackled. "Yes, Paige. Start packing. It's not right for a divorcee to squat in her ex-husband's house, especially when he's about to marry a billionaire." Paige smiled, a wry, chilling smile that suddenly made the hair on Ryan's neck stand up. "Who said I'm the one who has to leave?" Her words hung in the air, stopping Mimi's laughter cold. "What are you talking about? Don't be delusional. This is my son's house. He worked his fingers to the bone for this place. You were just the wife who sat at home." Paige didn't bother arguing. She stood and walked calmly to a large decorative cabinet in the corner. Tucked away at the bottom, hidden by a painting, was a small safe. She spun the combination dial. Click. The safe door swung open. Ryan watched, frowning. He knew about the safe, but Paige had always said it just contained catering documents and family recipes. Paige pulled out a thick green folder. She walked back to the table and slammed it down hard enough to make a vase tremble. "Thump! Open it," Paige commanded. Hesitantly, Ryan opened the folder. His eyes widened as he read the title of the document inside, Grant Deed. He read the name of the owner, printed in bold capital letters. Paige Anna Latimer, not Ryan Harris, not the Harris family. What is this?" Ryan stammered. "Can you read, Ryan? Or has your imaginary wealth made you illiterate?" Paige sneered. That is the deed to this house, the house you've been living in for 5 years. It was an inheritance from my late father, given to me before we were ever married. Mimi snatched the deed from Ryan's hands. Her eyes nearly popped out of her head. Impossible! This is a fake. Ryan told me he was paying the mortgage on this house. Ryan's face went white, the blood draining from it. He had lied to his mother at the beginning of their marriage. To boost his own ego, he'd claimed his wife's inherited home was the fruit of his own labor, a testament to his success. The lie he had maintained for years had just become a boomerang aimed at his own neck. Mom, Ryan didn't buy this house. Ryan's voice was a pathetic squeak. It's always been Paige's. What? Mimi shrieked, throwing the deed to the floor. You stupid boy, then where has your salary been going all these years? It went to you, Ryan yelled back, panicked. For your bags, your charity events, your vacations, for your ego? Have you forgotten? Paige watched the blame game unfold, her arms crossed. Are you finished with the drama? Now, listen to me. Paige picked up the deed, brushing off the dust as if cleansing it of their filthy hands. This house is my sole and separate property. The furniture, the appliances, the Escalade in the garage that you love to drive that's registered to my company, it's all mine. Paige took a step forward, looking directly into Ryan's terrified eyes. You have been living here for free, eating for free, sleeping on a comfortable bed for free, using my electricity for free. And now, Paige pointed a trembling finger at the main door, since you have divorced me, you are strangers in my house. Wait, Paige, you can't do this. Mimi tried a new tactic, her voice suddenly pleading. We're family. You wouldn't do this to your mother-in-law. I'm an old woman, Paige. It's raining outside. Family? Paige let out a bitter laugh. A moment ago, you called me a parasite. A moment ago, you told me to get out. Do you have memory loss when it comes to your own cruelty? But, Roxanne, Ryan grasped for a lifeline. Exactly, Paige cut in sharply. She marched to the front door and threw it open. The cold night air and a spray of rain immediately flooded the warm living room. If she's so rich, go ask her to take you in. Now get out of my house. Paige's voice boomed, releasing 5 years of pent-up oppression. Mimi trembled violently, her legs giving way. She realized that without this house, she was nothing but a homeless woman with a knockoff handbag. Paige, please, don't joke. Ryan, son, say something to your wife. Ex-wife, Paige corrected coldly. I'm giving you 30 minutes. Get your clothes, and only your clothes. Don't you dare touch anything else. I have security cameras in every corner. If so much as a spoon goes missing, I'll report you to the police for theft. Panicked, Ryan scrambled upstairs to their room, followed by Mimi, who dragged her feet, sobbing hysterically, not tears of regret, but tears of fear at the prospect of poverty. In the bedroom, chaos erupted. Mimi tried to stuff her jewelry box into a suitcase. Mom, those are all fakes, aren't they? Ryan asked, stressed, throwing his own clothes haphazardly into a duffel bag. Some of it is real. The diamond earrings Paige gave me for my birthday last year, Mimi cried. Suddenly, Paige was standing in the doorway, flanked by Frank, the property's security guard, who had been called inside. Frank's face was grim, ready to drag out anyone his employer commanded. Check her suitcase, Frank, Paige ordered. Frank stepped forward and opened Mimi's suitcase. He found a luxury watch and several small crystal figurines. These belong to Mrs. Latimer, Frank said firmly, removing the items. Those were gifts to me, Mimi shrieked, trying to snatch them back. They were gifts to my mother-in-law. You are no longer my mother-in-law. Besides, I bought them with my money. Consider it 5 years back rent for your room, Paige said icily. The 30 minutes felt both agonizingly long and brutally short. Finally, Ryan and Mimi stood on the front porch with 2 large suitcases and several bags. They were a mess. Mimi's hair was disheveled, her mascara running down her face. Ryan's expensive shirt was splattered with rain. The housekeepers and a few curious neighbors began to peek from behind their fences. A wave of shame washed over Ryan. He, who had always puffed out his chest as the master of the house, was now being thrown out like a stray cat. Go, Paige commanded. Ryan looked at Paige one last time, a flash of hatred in his eyes. You'll regret this, Paige. You just wait. Tomorrow, Roxanne will pick me up in a luxury car, and I'll laugh at you from my new mansion. "I'll be waiting," Paige replied calmly. "Now get off my property." Frank pushed open the heavy black iron gate. Ryan and Mimi dragged their suitcases out into the pouring rain. As soon as their feet crossed the property line, Frank slammed the gate shut with a deafening clang. Clang. The sound of the deadbolt turning was like a death sentence to their comfortable lives. Paige stood behind the glass window, watching the two figures now soaked on the sidewalk. She felt no pity, only an overwhelming sense of relief, as if a massive boulder had just been lifted from her chest. She turned, switched off the living room lights, and left them to the darkness outside. Outside the towering gates, reality hit Ryan and Mimi like a freight train. The rain was relentless. They took shelter under the awning of a closed shop not far from the gated community. Mimi was shivering. The Hermes scarf from Roxanne was now a soggy, limp rag. "Ryan, I'm freezing. Call a cab. We're going to a 5-star hotel." I refused to look like a homeless person. Ryan fumbled for his phone, its screen wet with rain. He opened his banking app. His balance, $450, enough for a cab and maybe some fast food, but not a 5-star hotel. His credit card was maxed out from the shopping spree and from treating Roxanne to dinner. "Mom, we're short on cash," Ryan said, his voice trembling. "What about Roxanne? Call her. Tell her to pick us up. Tell her we're free and we need a place to stay before we move into her mansion," Mimi urged, her teeth chattering. With shaking hands, Ryan found the contact saved as My Future in his phone. He pressed call. Ring, ring, no answer. He tried again, and again. On the 5th try, she picked up. Her voice was slurred, and loud music blared in the background. "Ryan? What is it?" "You're blowing up my phone. It's so annoying. I'm at a party." Roxanne sounded irritated, a far cry from her usual sultry tone. Roxanne, you have to help me. I divorced Paige. She kicked me out. My mom and I are on the street, in the rain. Can you pick us up? Can we come to your place?" Ryan begged, his pride washed away by the storm. There was a moment of silence on the other end, then a burst of derisive laughter. "What? Kicked out? You mean that house in Calabasas isn't yours?" It was Paige's. "But I'm going to be your husband. We're going to run the mining business together, remember?" "Are you insane?" Roxanne shrieked over the music. "I thought you were rich. I thought that house was your asset, something I could use as collateral. If you're broke, what the hell do I need you for? I'm being chased by debt collectors, you idiot. I was looking for a rich guy to pay off my debts, not take on another broke loser and his tacky mother." Ryan felt his heart stop. "But, Roxanne, we love each other. Wake up, Ryan. Love doesn't pay my designer bills. Don't ever call me again. Bye." Click. The line went dead. Ryan stood frozen. The phone slipped from his grasp and fell into a dirty puddle on the sidewalk. Well? Is Roxanne coming? Is she bringing her Rolls Royce? Mimi asked, her face full of hope. Ryan turned slowly to his mother, his expression vacant, as if his soul had been forcibly ripped from his body. She's not coming, Mom. She's in a lot of debt. She was just using me because she thought I was rich." Mimi's jaw dropped. Her world collapsed. Her dreams of a new mansion, luxury cars, and socialite status evaporated in an instant. "Lies!" she finally shrieked, her voice cracking. "You must have said something wrong. Call her again." "She blocked me, Mom," Ryan yelled in frustration, kicking his own suitcase. "We have no one left." That night ended tragically. They managed to get a cheap Uber that smelled of stale cigarettes, which took them to a seedy motel in Van Nuys for $80 a night. The room was cramped and musty, the walls damp. The bedsheets were a dingy gray with cigarette burns. Mimi sat on the edge of the hard mattress, staring blankly at her surroundings. This is where we're sleeping?" Mimi whispered, fresh tears streaming down her face. "I can't sleep here, Ryan. It smells." Ryan slid to the floor, his back against the wall, hugging his knees. He thought of his bedroom in Paige's house. The soft, king-sized bed, the scent of the lavender diffuser Paige always kept on, the warm, thick comforter, all of it gone. "Get used to it, Mom," Ryan mumbled bitterly, staring at the water-stained ceiling. "This is our new palace, the palace our own greed built. And outside, The rain continued to fall, as if trying to wash away their sins, or perhaps just to drown them deeper in the mire of regret that was only just beginning. The morning sun that pierced through the grimy curtains of the motel room brought no warmth, only illuminating the dust motes dancing in the stale air. Ryan woke up with a stiff back. He instinctively reached across the bed, a years-old habit of looking for Paige to ask for a glass of water. His hand met the cold, peeling paint of the damp wall. Reality crashed down on him. "Ryan, the hot water's out! Ryan!" Mimi's shriek from the bathroom shattered his thoughts. He dragged himself to the cracked plastic bathroom door. Inside, Mimi stood wrapped in a threadbare towel, her face covered in soap foam, while the showerhead dripped only cold, murky water. "Be patient, Mom. This isn't our house." "It's a cheap motel," Ryan said, his voice hoarse. "Patient? I'm freezing. My skin will be ruined. Call the front desk and tell them to fix it now," Mimi demanded. Ryan just grunted, turning the rusty faucet in the sink to splash his face with brownish water. He looked at his reflection in the clouded mirror. The dark circles under his eyes were stark. He looked 10 years older overnight. At the office, things were no better. He was late, his shirt was a wrinkled mess, and he hadn't eaten. "Rough night, Harris?" a colleague jeered. "Looks like you slept in your car." He tried to focus, but his mind was a whirlwind of shame and regret. Then, his phone rang. It was HR. "Mr. Harris, the CEO needs to see you now. There have been some complaints about your performance." In the sterile, cold office of his boss, a file was tossed onto the desk. "Ryan, I'm hearing you have personal problems. Clients can't reach you, and you show up looking unprofessional. Fix it, or I'll find someone who can. This is your final warning." 3 days later, the little cash Ryan had from pawning his watch was gone. They had to move. He found a tiny, sweltering studio apartment in a rough neighborhood, the kind with thin walls and the constant smell of boiled cabbage from next door. The first night, there was a living nightmare of noisy neighbors, mosquitoes, and suffocating heat. "I want air conditioning, Ryan. I'm getting rashes," Mimi wailed, scratching her arms. Ryan, trying to cook instant noodles on a single hot plate, slammed the pot down. "Shut up, Mom! Just shut up!" he screamed, his eyes red with fury. "Stop demanding things! We're broke!" "Do you understand? Broke. My savings are gone, paying off the credit card debt you racked up, buying fake bags. We have nothing." Mimi stared, shocked by his outburst. Then she fired back. "This is all your fault. If you had been smarter, you would have convinced Paige to stay. If you weren't such an idiot, you would have seen through that Roxanne tramp. You failed me. I did this because I listened to you," Ryan bellowed, pointing a trembling finger at her. "You poisoned my mind. You told me Roxanne was our ticket. You told me Paige was beneath us. Well, enjoy it, Mom. This is the result of your brilliant parenting. Go on, eat your pride." They ate their instant noodles in a thick, hateful silence. Stripped of their luxury, their true, ugly selves were laid bare. Meanwhile, at the Calabasas mansion, the atmosphere was the polar opposite. The house felt brighter, more spacious, and above all, peaceful. Paige had donated Mimi's gaudy velvet furniture to a thrift store and was waiting for a new, minimalist set to arrive. Her business, Paige's Pantry, was booming. Without the mental burden of her husband and mother-in-law, her energy and creativity had multiplied. That afternoon, she had a meeting with an important new client. A sleek black sedan pulled into her driveway. A handsome, well-dressed man stepped out. It was Leo Vance, a rapidly ascending real estate developer looking to secure daily catering for his hundreds of construction workers. "Mr. Vance." "Welcome," Paige greeted him professionally. "Please, call me Leo," he said, shaking her hand firmly. "I've heard great things about Paige's Pantry. I have to say, the owner is even more charismatic than I imagined." The meeting went smoothly. Leo was not only a sharp businessman, but also a genuinely good person. He was impressed by Paige's vision and passion. In the middle of their conversation, he noticed a box of discarded items in the corner of the garage, including a cracked wedding photo of Paige and Ryan. "Forgive me for being forward," Leo said gently. "Spring cleaning some old memories?" Paige looked over and laughed, a genuine, carefree sound. "Not memories, just trash. I'm doing a major renovation, not just on the house, but on my life." Leo looked at her with a newfound admiration. "A life renovation is sometimes necessary," he said, his voice warm. "It helps you build a stronger foundation, and I have a feeling the new structure you're building is going to be magnificent." That day, Paige didn't just land a multi-million-dollar contract. She found validation that she was worthy, capable, and deserved better. That night, she sat on her balcony, looked at Ryan's blank profile picture on her phone, and pressed block. "Goodbye, past," she whispered. "Hello, me." Weeks turned into a month. One sweltering afternoon, Ryan was at their dingy apartment when his mother started complaining of a terrible headache. "My head feels like it's splitting, Ryan. My blood pressure must be through the roof." Before he could respond, her eyes went wide, her face drooped to one side, and she collapsed. At the county hospital, the diagnosis was a minor stroke. The reality of their situation became brutally clear. They had no insurance. Ryan had let the policy lapse, thinking it was an unnecessary expense. His mother was treated in a crowded ward, and the bills were already piling up. His phone buzzed. An email. It was his official termination letter from his job. He stood in the sterile hallway, his mother lying unconscious in a bed, a pink slip in his hand, and less than $50 in his wallet. This, he thought, was hell. When Mimi was discharged, she was not the same. The left side of her body was weak. Her speech was slurred. Ryan became her reluctant nurse, feeding her, cleaning up after her, his days a monotonous cycle of despair. "The porridge is tasteless, Ryan," Mimi would mumble, tears in her eyes. "I miss Paige's oxtail soup." The name was a knife in his gut. One desperate night, he decided. "Mom, tomorrow I'm going to see Paige." Mimi's eyes lit up with a flicker of hope. "Yes, son, apologize, grovel. Paige has a soft heart. If you beg her, show her how sick I am, she won't be able to turn us away. We can live in the guest house, even the servants' quarters. Anything is better than this." The next morning, Ryan put on his last clean shirt and made the long journey back to Calabasas. When he arrived, he barely recognized the place. The gates were newly painted, the landscaping was immaculate, and a brand new white Porsche SUV sat in the driveway. He rang the intercom. Frank, the security guard, answered. "What do you want, Mr. Harris?" His voice was cold. "I need to see Paige. It's an emergency." "My mother." Just then, Paige appeared behind the gate. Ryan gasped. She was radiant, dressed in a simple, elegant sundress, her hair flowing, her skin glowing. She looked happy, healthy, and a million miles away from the tired woman he had known. She stopped a few feet from the gate, her expression not of anger or hate, but of complete indifference, which was far more painful. "What do you want?" she asked. "Paige, I'm sorry." Ryan immediately fell to his knees on the hot pavement. Real tears streamed down his face. "I was a fool. I'm being punished. My mother had a stroke. We have nothing. We're starving. Please, Paige, take us back. I'll be your driver, your gardener, anything." Paige listened, her expression unchanging. "Ryan," she said, her voice calm but final. "You asked me to remember the good times." "Which good times? The time you cheated on me? The time your mother insulted me every single day? Or the time you threw me out of my own home in your delusional fantasy? I'm sorry to hear about your mother, but she is your responsibility. You wanted to be the big man, the king, so be one. Take care of her." "You're being cruel." "No," Paige said, a sad smile touching her lips. "I'm being kind to myself. The door to this life is closed to you forever." She turned and walked back into her magnificent house. "Paige, don't go!" Ryan screamed. "Clang!" Frank shut and locked the gate. Ryan was left kneeling on the asphalt, alone, realizing that his tears were now worthless to the woman who had once cried an ocean for him. 6 months passed. Ryan was now a driver for a food delivery app, his face weathered, his hands calloused. He was forced to bring his mother, now confined to a cheap, second-hand wheelchair, with him on his routes, leaving her on sidewalks outside restaurants while he picked up orders. One evening, he was waiting outside a 5-star hotel in Beverly Hills where a celebrity wedding was taking place. A black Rolls-Royce pulled up. Leo Vance stepped out, looking dapper in a tuxedo. He turned and offered his hand to his date. It was Paige. She was breathtaking in a stunning crimson gown, diamonds glittering at her neck. She took Leo's arm, laughing at something he whispered to her, her face alight with a joy Ryan had never been able to give her. They looked like royalty. As they walked the red carpet, a reporter shouted, "Mr. Vance, when are you two tying the knot?" Paige just smiled and looked at Leo with pure love, a look that was once reserved for Ryan. Across the street, in the shadows, Mimi started to make guttural, sobbing sounds, pointing a trembling finger at the hotel. My daughter-in-law, she rasped. Ryan's chest felt like it was being crushed. He saw everything he had thrown away, a diamond he had discarded for a piece of glass, and now that diamond was being cherished by a king. "She's not your daughter-in-law anymore, Mom," Ryan said, his voice cracking. "She's a queen, and we're just the dirt on her shoes." He started his noisy scooter and drove them away from the glittering lights, back to their dark, musty reality. 2 years later, the tiny studio apartment was even more derelict. Ryan was now a manual laborer at a wholesale market, his body thin and broken. The single mattress in the corner was empty. Mimi had passed away a week earlier, quietly, in the suffocating heat of the night. Her funeral was a small, charity-funded affair, attended by a few sympathetic neighbors. Ryan sat on the floor, picking at a newspaper someone had left behind. On the society page was a large photo. Paige's Pantry CEO Paige Latimer Vance celebrates 50th franchise opening and first wedding anniversary with real estate magnate Leo Vance. In the photo, Paige was beautiful and successful, holding a laughing baby boy in her arms while Leo looked on lovingly. Ryan crumpled the newspaper. There was no anger left, no jealousy, only a vast, hollow emptiness. He had it all. He had a heaven on earth, and he had burned it to the ground because he thought the fires of hell looked warmer. He closed his eyes, a single tear tracing a path through the grime on his cheek. "I'm sorry, Paige," he whispered to the empty room. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." But apologies couldn't turn back time. The gates to that life were locked forever. For those who do not know how to be grateful, the punishment is not just losing what they have, but being forced to watch someone else cherish it for the rest of their lives. Ryan Harris, the arrogant former master of the house, was now just a spectator on the sidelines of life, destined to live out his days in a long, lonely, and self-inflicted defeat.